All right, now for a discussion of our first case of the semester, The Hunger Games, Chapter 2, Catching Fire. And before we get into conversation around the case itself and the two questions that will form the crux of our analysis of the case, I wanted to give some information to those of you who may not have seen the movies. So here is a 3-minute video on uh, the Hunger Games films.
The Hunger Games, a bleak, futuristic North America in which the lowest dregs of society toil in nightmarish conditions while the wealthy elite live pampered, secluded lives, free of all worries and excess eyebrow hair.
So, just literally exactly America.
The story centers around a just slightly more sinister TLC, whose hit reality show pits children from around the nation against each other in a grisly televised death match.
It's Honey Boo Boo with, way more boo-boos.
We follow Katniss Everdeen, a stoic and intense citizen of District 12 who volunteers for the games in order to protect her younger sister.
We also follow Peeta Mellark, a tiny baby boy who can frost cakes and disguise himself as a rock.
And Gale, Thor's brother.
Katniss is a skilled archer, which makes her just a super efficient kid killer. Lucky break.
In the first games, Katniss is relentlessly hunted by the rich kids. Basically, Cobra Kai with just a dash more murder.
But in this trilogy, unlike those typical trilogies, our protagonist does not die in the first installment, instead winning the games with a surprise berry technicality, through which she's able to save Peeta as well.
Which makes you wonder, what's the deal with Katniss and the Peets? Is there something there, or is this just a ploy for—
Part 2. The games are back, and they're not just for teens anymore. This time, the government rounds up a couple olds and brings them out into the woods to get killed.
Like olds to the slaughter. Is that a thing?
Nope. Katniss learns the value of teamwork, trust, and lightning's effect on three-dimensional force fields, and, super last minute, joins the Rebel Alliance.
Part 3.
Part 1.
Well, part 1 of Part 3.
Right.
Whatever.
Katniss is in the Rebel base, District 13, the mystery bonus district that makes bombs, or just keeps bombs. They're communists, there's bombs, they're underground. Mole communists, it does,
No more Hunger Games, though.
True. Which is kind of disappointing, isn't it?
What, the teens are no longer killing each other for the entertainment of the upper class?
Yeah, well, when you put it like that.
That's what it is.
Yeah, but
Well, say what you want to say.
Well, here's what I'll say. I wouldn't change the channel.
On the Hunger Games?
Right.
You'd watch the actual Hunger Games.
Yeah, I mean, well, it'll be on every channel, right?
You'd watch teens killing each other on TV.
Are there other shows even? What's it up against?
You don't have to watch TV.
Yeah. Nah, I definitely watch it. I mean, teens are horrible. Have you seen teens? They're awful. The average teenager is not a super competent.
Okay, so there's a brief summary of the Hunger Games. And honestly, if you watch the films, fantastic. Read the books, great as well. If you have never seen anything to do with the Hunger Games, doesn't really change the your ability to analyze the case and understand what the folks at Lionsgate were doing from a marketing perspective with the release of this particular movie. So what we had was the original Hunger Games film based on a book of the same name. It was a very successful release. The book series was a trilogy, so there's parts 1, 2, and 3. The movie series was then intended, assuming the first one was successful, that it would also be a trilogy at least, perhaps split the third movie or third book into 2 movies, which seems to be a new thing for movies to do. But the first movie was successful, so Lionsgate lined up the opportunity to release the second film, which is The Hunger Games Catching Fire. It was a November 2013 release. And to build up to this release, Lionsgate took a very creative approach to marketing this particular film and building the marketing campaign for this film. The result of the campaign was the largest opening ever for a November release. The movie made $158 million in its first weekend. And then when we flip over to the other side here, we're looking at a marketing campaign that is a brand storytelling campaign that cuts across a wide variety of platforms, including all the ones listed below: YouTube, Tumblr, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram specifically. So some of interesting elements to look at this particular campaign and what make it worthy of us examining in this particular class. The targeting specifically is interesting in that it's not an awareness campaign. So unlike virtually every other movie campaign that has ever taken place, this campaign went under the assumption that most people were already going to know the movie existed and that it was a sequel to The Hunger Games. And the targeting of the campaign was directed at those who were already fans. Okay, so rather than acquiring new fans, Lionsgate was going to market and communicate with the existing fans under the intent at some of the elements that they put together here. There's propaganda materials and posters that found their way into our world Then we have in the middle there propaganda posters that are vandalized along the lines of what was happening in the movie world. And then we see a whole series of, again, propaganda films here, where or propaganda posters where the government of Pan Am is singling out individuals that represent the best or the exemplar of each of the existing 12 districts in Pan Am. This was an incredibly experience-centric campaign. One of the true elements that made it interesting is the movie just became just one of the overall pieces of the overall fan experience or audience experience. There was all this other stuff going on around it that really made the movie just an element of this world, and the campaign was based around making this world that much more detailed and in depth, and offering an opportunity for the fans of the film to really immerse themselves in specifically the capital, because that was going to be a focal point of the second movie. And we end up with this incredibly in-depth cross-platform storytelling that expands the Hunger Games story world beyond what was in the books, beyond what is in the movies, and some of the elements that we see that are related to this show up in the form of magazine and billboard advertisements, like the one that we see to the left here, that appear in American magazines, and the billboards appear in American cities, bringing the Hunger Games world into our own world. And then there was a creation of an online magazine called Capital Culture, which we talked about, or I talked about a couple of minutes ago, where there was a bunch of stuff presented by Lionsgate and the filmmakers as far as what the characters wore, what additional people across Pan Am happen to be wearing, stories written by or things designed by designers from the actual Hunger Games fictional world. But then what we got here on the right is a whole bunch of user-generated content. Okay, so not only do we get material from the movie, we get material that the users are making that is based around the world of the movie. Again, kind of blurring the lines between the fiction and reality, and making the two kind of function smoothly. All right, so what's next? Okay, so about half of you guys met with me this week to discuss your projects. All but one or two of those teams left those meetings with a specific idea for a project. That's fantastic. Those guys are ready to go, and I'm interested and looking forward to seeing what they come up with project-wise. For the rest of you that did not meet with me this week, reach out so we can talk about the project. Okay. I really want everyone to have an opportunity to have a conversation with me about what they're working on and what they might pursue as their project. So team up. Most of the teams have already been created. Decide what your project is going to be on, and get started. Okay. And for those of you that came to meet with me, we'll do another check-in in 4 weeks. For those of you that did not, check in with me as soon as possible, and be sure that you sign up for a slot on the second check-in in week 13. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon.